Hey, what's up? My name is JM Jaley and welcome to my channel. This time I want to talk about adapting your role-playing game to a story. Now, hold on a second. If you've been watching this channel for a long time or since the beginning since the beginning, this is a topic I've done before and I'm redoing it. And let me explain why. First of all, it was done in my old recording location, which was not ideal, my old camera, my old microphone. So the quality was not great. And the other thing I did was I actually took that video offline because the nature of my channel sort of changed over the years from when I first launched it. When I first launched my channel, this was supposed to be really dedicated to taking RPG content, tabletop RPG content, and adapting it to your manuscript. And because I'd met so many people that were doing exactly that. You know, they're writing some fantasy, adventure about their D&D character, right? So many people were doing it, including myself at the time. And I said, well, that's what I'm going to talk about on my channel. And over the course of the life of the channel, I ran out of things to talk about because there's only so many ways you can say, yeah, just do this and then do that, and away you go. So I ended up taking those videos offline. But then after thinking about it a little bit, I thought, this is still a topic that fantasy fiction authors might still be interested in because they're still doing exactly that. And it's certainly still a topic in fantasy fiction, which still falls under the purview of this channel. So I'm kind of going to resurrect this topic a little bit. Better microphone, better camera. So I'm going to rehash it. So let's get into it. Well, obviously the first thing you want to do is undock your content from the source material, right? You can't use Baldur's Gate anymore, right? You can't use Waterdeep, right? All these proper nouns, all these names of places. Your adventure needs to take place, obviously, someplace else, right? If there's a signature race, that's beholden to Dungeons and Dragons, for example, or Pathfinder, or whatever you've got, you need to kind of make it your own. Call it something different. It could be similar. I mean, elves are all over the place in fantasy fiction. You don't have to worry about using elves or dwarves or things like that. But if you got into something very, very, very specific, like the Aasimar or, I don't know, Warforged or something like that, right? Maybe you need to call them something else. They can still be similar things, but now they're your own. You need to undock your material from the source material. And even though you can't use Baldur's Gate, you can still have a town very similar to Baldur's Gate. It can still have a gate on it, kick-ass gate. I don't know. Just make it your own. Call it something else. All right, so number 2 is magic. So all these fantasy RPGs have a magic system. They've got names of spells, how spells work, all this kind of stuff. My advice to you is nuke it and rebuild it from the ground up. A completely new magic system. Because, if your readers see you cast Fireball or something, or Featherfall, or, there's very specific spell names or spells operate the same way that they do in a tabletop RPG, your readers are going to know. They're going to pick up on it. They're going to, even if your story's good, it's going to be tainted by that kind of, oh, this is from D&D. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a dig on D&D, but I think that readers, when they realize that, they're going to realize, oh, this wasn't the author's original idea. So you want to kind of take what's necessary and then make everything else your own. That's the goal here, right? It's not really so much about putting veneers over stuff or renaming stuff as it is taking the story, the characters, maybe we'll get to the characters in a moment, making them your own, and then moving forward with your story, right? Which brings me to the third thing, which are the characters. The characters are now yours. All the players, however many players you had, they each had their own character, and maybe you were one of the characters, right? Maybe you were the dungeon master. If you were one of the characters, then I imagine that your character is going to be the main character. But if you're the dungeon master, then maybe you need to decide who the main character is. And I'll get to POVs in a moment. But specifically, when you think about the roster of characters, you need to figure out who's going to stay and who's going to go. Are you going to keep everybody? Are you going to change someone? Maybe your friend Dave played a halfling. Well, in your new world, there are no halflings. So maybe your friend Dave, his character becomes a lizard man. Or whatever, right? Maybe they're an elf. You figure that out. Maybe Dave's character's just not there. Oh well. Maybe you only need 3. A companion of 3, right? On a journey, whatever it is. You decide which characters stay, which ones go, which ones change. That sort of thing. They're your characters now. And whatever things they did in the game, what they said, what they did, their race, whatever race they were, whatever class they were, all this kind of stuff, you are in control now. They're your characters now. You make them fit your story. Which brings me to POV. I touched on this a little while ago. The fourth recommendation with the point of view of the character, I imagine if you were one of the players that you're taking this from, that your character would be the one whose POV it is. You're the main character. Your character is the main character. But maybe you want to have multiple POVs. You need to figure that out. If you're the dungeon master who's looking over all this and says, I'm going to take this and make it into a story, then you kind of need to pick which character is the main character. Even if it's multiple POVs, you have to have sort of someone that it's mostly focused on. Even if you're giving it other people a voice, right? Even in the first person. So you need to figure out where the narratives are coming from. Third person, first person, omniscient, whatever. Figure that out, because that's really who the reader's going to be following. And the last thing is really making the world your own. And this kind of goes back to, it kind of rolls everything up, items 1 through 4 that I've been talking about, into one thing. But you'd be surprised at how often this one gets skipped. A lot of fantasy authors, particularly in the self-publishing space, because I don't know that in the traditional publishing space they make it through that gauntlet of agents and publishers if their story is too similar to like a Dungeons and Dragons or something like that. So you see it more often in the self-publishing space, but they don't go far enough. The author doesn't go far enough. What they do is they say, well, it's not Baldur's Gate anymore. It's Fred's Gate. And Fred is the mayor of the town, and he's got a gate. Keeps out all the gnolls, the goblins. I don't know. Right? So that's not enough. Make it your own. I would honestly start with the green field and say, what do the kingdoms look like? What do the countries look like? What's the political system? Like, really build this up. I mean, you're not going to world dump any of this stuff, hopefully, but you should know what's going on in your world and how it's set up, right? Especially if you're dealing with something in a fantasy fiction thing, you should know how the spells work and how magic works, and if there are kings and dragons and stuff out there, because you never know what you may write in the future. You want to have this stuff in your back pocket and lay the groundwork for it ahead of time, even if it's only in your head. We're not info dumping or doing world dumps, right? So you know it's going to be. But it's going to be your own world, built from the ground up. And that's not just renaming stuff or putting a fancy veneer over something and saying, it's this now. Where a reader can easily pull back that curtain and go, this is Dungeons and Dragons. Can you see this? It doesn't take much of an effort for them to really go, hold on a second. Oh, this is D&D. And again, it's not a knock on D&D, but when your readers realize they may jump to the conclusion that you didn't really make the story your own. Maybe you made it in collaboration with a bunch of folks, on a Friday night rolling dice. And there's nothing wrong with that, but when they see it, the magic is gone, the illusion is lost. And now they may only just picture like someone regurgitating their game sessions into a manuscript and not really going through the process of building something fresh and new from scratch. Even though, of course you did, right? Of course you did, because we're, writing, it's still writing even when you wrote all that character stuff, right? I'm talking about avoiding a perception, that's all. So definitely make it your own. That's the fifth one. It always gets, not always, but it so often gets forgotten. Make the world your own. Make all the species and races, whatever you want to call them, your own. The spell system, your own. The governments and maps and all this kind of stuff. Make them your own so that it will be indistinguishable from the source material. You may have started playing on Forgotten Realms, but when you're done, your readers will be hard-pressed to find any trace of it in your manuscript. That's the goal. And then you can focus on the story, because it's really about the story. It's not about what this town is called and what this, whose character class is what, because you're not doing character classes, you're writing a story, and people just do things. Right? Okay. All right. You get it. So, those are 5 tips for taking an RPG campaign, an RPG story, and making your own into a novel. That's all yours, and all yours alone. All right, so if you like this video, please smush that like button, and as always, please subscribe. You can follow me on a number of social media platforms. I'm most active on Threads, Blue Sky, and Facebook. You can also check out jmchaley.com. Lots of information about my releases on there. There's appearances when I'll be going out doing book shows and events. And you can sign up for my newsletter. You can send me a message. I'm really good at corresponding. If you want to reach out, I would love that. Yeah, that's about it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.